Hey everybody, ready to get intense? Today we're diving into the world of David Goggins and his no-holds-barred approach to self-discipline.
Definitely not your typical self-help guru.
Not even close. This is about pushing limits and getting brutally honest with yourself. And we're going straight to the source for this one.
Using Goggins' own speeches and writings.
Expect some strong language. That's how he rolls. No sugarcoating here. But Goggins' central idea is that self-discipline, it's not about punishment.
It's actually the ultimate form of self-love.
Yeah, choosing long-term respect over that quick hit of gratification. Tough choices, but Goggins makes this wild comparison
He equates saying no to, another slice of pizza.
with saying no to a toxic relationship.
Both are acts of self-love, recognizing you're worth more than that.
It's deep, right? It's about valuing yourself enough to make those hard calls. And Goggins, well, he's an extreme example of what that can look like.
Oh, absolutely. This is a guy who went from feeling like a total failure, overweight,
See, completing SEAL training 3 times.
with injuries. We're talking broken pull-up records, ultra marathons.
Insane stuff. But he doesn't expect everyone to become some superhuman athlete.
Right. The point is, we put limits on ourselves. We think we know our capacity.
And he's saying, nope, you're capable of way more than you believe. Pushing past those self-made limits, that's where growth happens.
That's where his wall analogy comes in. You want to build a massive wall, overwhelming if you think of the whole thing at once.
You focus on each brick, right, laying it perfectly, one at a time. Eventually, you've got your wall.
Exactly. Break down your goals into those bricklaying steps, small, consistent actions adding up to huge results over time. Goggins is also big on acknowledging our weaknesses.
Yeah, brutal honesty with himself. He considered himself dumb and weak at one point.
But instead of letting that define him,
He worked to change it.
big time.
Sometimes I get stuck in that loop of, I'm not good at this. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
But Goggins would say, recognize it, then work like hell to improve.
Love that. But even when we're aware, man, the distractions. And Goggins has some strong opinions, especially about phones.
Oh yeah, no holding back.
He straight up says some people would be successful if they just ditched their phones. Now, I'm not tossing mine just yet.
But it makes you think, how much time and energy do we pour into these little devices?
Right. It's not about demonizing tech, but getting real about priorities. Hours on social media when we could be building something meaningful.
And are we letting notifications run our lives instead of focusing on what truly matters?
It's about being intentional. But what about when life throws those curveballs? Things totally outside our control. Goggins makes this distinction. Fault versus responsibility.
Powerful stuff. He says you're not necessarily responsible for the bad things that happen, like a rough childhood or betrayal.
But you are responsible for how you deal with those things, how you choose to move forward.
So even if you've experienced abuse, infidelity, things so many people go through,
Goggins would say you still have the power to choose how those experiences define you.
it's about shifting from victim to taking control, creating a fulfilling life despite the challenges.
It's about finding that inner strength, even when things feel chaotic. But Goggins doesn't stop there. He talks about the people we surround ourselves with.
Yeah, this part really hit home for me. He uses this fire analogy. People are either fire starters or water pourers in our lives.
Love that. The fire starters, they nourish and inspire us, add fuel to our fire. Water pourers, the opposite.
They drain us, hold us back, douse that flame.
Goggins challenges us to look at our recent texts. Are these people feeding my flames or throwing water on them? Such a simple question. But man, it makes you think.
About the impact of our relationships, we can get so caught up in the day-to-day.
Not realizing how certain people are affecting our energy, our drive.
Goggins says we have a responsibility to be aware of that, make conscious choices about who we let in.
We have the power to choose our company. And that ties back to this whole message of ownership, right? Choosing how we react, who surrounds us, what kind of life we build.
Absolutely. But what about those who feel they just don't have the talent to reach their goals? Goggins addresses this head-on. Talent versus skill.
He says everyone's born with some talents, but they mean nothing without the work to turn them into skills.
He's got this killer quote. Talent you have naturally. Skill is only developed by hours and hours and hours of beating on your craft.
Basically, greatness isn't some magical gift. It's showing up and putting in the work, day after day.
Goggins, he talks about building a wall brick by brick. You don't set out to build a wall. You say, I'm going to lay this brick as perfectly as a brick can be laid. And you do that every single day, and soon you have a wall. Consistency. focusing on the process, not just the end result.
And that leads us to another core principle, embracing fear. This
Yeah.
is where it gets really interesting. He doesn't just tolerate fear
He seeks it out.
actively to build that mental toughness.
He did things that terrified him, like skydiving. And you know what he found? The anticipation was often way worse than the actual experience.
Isn't that always the way we build things up in our heads?
He talks about skydiving. The fear leading up to it was crippling. But the jump itself, one of the most blissful experiences of his life.
It's like the fear we create robs us of joy before anything even happens.
Goggins believes we let fear paralyze us, stop us from taking risks, going after our dreams. He challenges us to face it head on, push through, and discover what's on the other side.
He even said, God placed the best things in life on the other side of terror.
Whoa, powerful stuff.
It's a reminder that growth, fulfillment, they often live outside our comfort zone.
And that brings us to Goggins' ultimate message, the no-quit mentality.
That grit, that determination, pushing past pain, fatigue.
He says do 11 reps when your opponent stops at 10.
He uses the boxer analogy a lot. Battered, bruised, but finding a way to get back up.
That image of the fighter who refuses to stay down, it's about digging deep, finding that inner strength.
Knowing what you're fighting for, that vision that keeps you going when it gets tough.
And he wants us to embrace those struggles, see them as chances to prove our strength.
To build that resilience.
Goggins' message, it's raw, it's intense. But for those ready to embrace the challenge, to push those limits,
It's incredibly powerful.
his own life, it really shows that potential, you know? Remember, Goggins started out almost 300 pounds, feeling like a complete failure, living down to everyone's expectations.
Yeah, he's brutally honest about how low he felt. Hitting rock bottom before that incredible transformation.
And his method. Intense is an understatement. Joining the military specifically to find the toughest challenges out there, that's how he ended up in SEAL training.
Not once, but 3 times.
Exactly.
He talks about wanting to callous his mind, to like build up that tolerance to pain, hardship. What does that even look like? How do you callous your mind?
It's about pushing past your comfort zone, on purpose, even when it sucks, when you want to quit. Goggins figured the only way to change was to go through the most grueling stuff imaginable. He said, I saw myself as the weakest person God ever created. You had to have a goal. My goal was the only person that's going to turn this person around is me.
So callousing his mind meant taking on challenges most people wouldn't even consider.
Right. Proving to himself he was tougher than he thought.
And the things he did are insane. The Guinness World Record for pull-ups.
Over 4,000 in 24 hours?
But get this, he did 67,000 pull-ups just in training for that.
It's wild.
Makes my gym routine look pretty sad.
He also ran 800-mile races back-to-back. Endurance that defies logic. But again, it's not about everyone becoming superhuman.
More about those limitations we set for ourselves.
Yeah, he was proving he could handle more, physically and mentally.
Way more.
He said, I had to build calluses in my brain the same way I built calluses on my hands. Mental toughness, you know? He didn't dodge pain or doubt. He trained himself to push through it.
Like getting comfortable being uncomfortable. He talks about suffering to grow. Seeking out things he hated or feared, believing that's where the real growth was.
He literally said, I'm afraid of my shadow. How can I overcome that? Go in the military, get your butt kicked, do things you hate to do, be uncomfortable every day of your life. He even applied it to his intelligence.
Right, how so?
Goggins thought he was dumb, so he made a point of educating himself, always learning, improving his mind, battling those perceived weaknesses, proving he could overcome anything.
Inspiring, even if his methods are a little extreme.
For sure.
It's about challenging yourself, stepping outside that comfort zone, proving you're capable of more than you think.
He said, the things that we run from, we running from the truth. So the only way I became successful was going towards the truth. As painful and as brutal as it is, it changed me. But Goggins also knows we live in a world of distractions, things that derail us from our goals, especially tech.
Yeah, his take on phones is pretty out there, saying some people would be successful if they just gave those things up.
Yeah.
Bold statement. I think he's got a point.
I don't know about ditching phones completely, but he's highlighting a real issue, right? Our addiction to technology. He's saying, I'm saying to you today that there's some of you, if you give up your cell phone, you would be successful. But your cell phone is more important to you than your success. It's a wake-up call. How much power are we giving these devices?
Guilty as charged. I spend way too much time scrolling social media. Sometimes I'm just zoned out for hours.
Goggins compares it to watching a football game. Hours spent watching other people achieve their dreams when you could be working on yours. He even asks, you really didn't have no business watching these boys win a national title, going to the NBA and making millions? You didn't have no business watching them because you're not where you need to be.
Ouch. But it's a valid point. Are we letting distractions run this show, or are we making choices to invest in what matters?
That's the question. And it leads to another big part of Goggins' philosophy, fault versus responsibility. He makes this distinction that's really thought-provoking. You might not be at fault for the bad stuff that happens to you.
But you are responsible for how you respond.
Exactly. It's a small difference, but important.
Huge.
It's not about blaming yourself for things outside your control. It's about recognizing you do have the power to choose how those experiences shape you.
You can't always control what happens, but your reaction, that's on you.
He uses examples like someone who grew up with an abusive parent or got cheated on by their partner. He said, it's not somebody's fault if their father was an abusive alcoholic, but it's for damn sure their responsibility to figure out how they're going to deal with those traumas and try to make a life out of it.
So taking ownership, even in those incredibly tough situations.
He continues with the cheating partner thing. He says, it's not your fault if your partner cheated and ruined your marriage, but it is for damn sure your responsibility to figure out how to take that pain and how to overcome that and build a happy life for yourself.
It's not about ignoring the pain, pretending it didn't happen. It's about choosing to move forward positively.
He argues that dwelling on who's at fault, it traps you in a victim mentality, stops you from healing, moving on. He said, as long as we're pointing the finger and stuck in whose fault something is, we're jammed and trapped into victim mode. When you're in victim mode, you're stuck in suffering. You gotta take responsibility for your own happiness, no matter what life throws at you.
But it's not all self-reliance, right?
Yeah.
Goggins also talks about the people we choose to be around.
Oh, huge. He believes the folks we spend time with, they impact our energy, our motivation, everything. Prioritize relationships with people who nourish and inspire you. The ones who add fuel to your fire, not those who drain it.
There's that fire analogy again. He says, look at your last 5 text messages. Are those people feeding your flames or dousing your fire?
So good.
Good, right. Are they supporting you or holding you back?
He takes it even further. Put your phone down for just a second and look around. Look to the people around you.
Yeah.
Are those people throwing logs on your fire or are they pissing on it?
Okay, that one's intense. Think I need to reevaluate some relationships after this.
It's a reminder, you know? Be mindful of who you're with. Make choices about who influences you. Real happiness comes from within, but the people around us, they can make it easier or a lot harder.
Choosing to be with people who lift you up, inspire you to be your best.
And it all ties back to taking responsibility for your life, your happiness, your growth, making choices that align with your values, what you want to achieve. But what about people who feel like they're just lacking talent to reach their goals? How does Goggins address that?
He separates talent from skill. Says everyone's born with some talent, but it's meaningless without hard work, dedication. You might have ability, but skill, it's built.
He's got this perfect quote. Talent you have naturally, skill is only developed by hours and hours and hours of beating on your craft. Reminds me of the 10,000-hour rule. You need that dedicated practice to master anything.
It's about showing up, putting in the work, pushing past your comfort zone. Goggins uses that wall analogy again. You don't set out to build a wall. You say, I'm going to lay this brick as perfectly as a brick can be laid. And you do that every single day, and soon you have a wall.
It's all about the process. Mastering the basics, brick by brick, day after day. Greatness isn't given, it's earned.
So talent might give you a head start, but it's skill developed through effort that really makes the difference. It's like they say, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard.
Exactly. And this takes us to another core Goggins principle, embracing fear.
This is the mental toughness territory, right? Not just pushing your body, but your mind.
Totally. Goggins doesn't just deal with fear, he goes looking for it. Believes confronting it head-on is the only way to overcome it, to truly grow.
So how does he do that? What's embracing fear actually look like?
He did things that scared the hell out of him, like skydiving, to build that mental toughness. And he realized the anticipation was way scarier than the actual thing.
It's so true. We build stuff up in our minds. It's huge and terrifying, but then not that bad.
He describes the skydiving fear as crippling beforehand, but the jump, one of the most blissful moments of his life. He talks about all that wasted energy worrying. He says, Why were you scared in your bed the night before? What do you need that fear for? Just don't go. Why are you scared in your bed 16 hours before you jump? Why are you scared in the car? Why could you not enjoy breakfast? Fear is fear of what? You're nowhere even near the airplane. Everything up to the stepping out, there's actually no reason to be scared. It only just ruins your day. You don't have to jump. And then in that moment, all of a sudden, where you should be terrified is the most blissful experience of your life.
We let fear steal our joy before anything even happens.
Goggins thinks we let fear paralyze us, keep us from taking risks, chasing our dreams. He's like, face it, push through and see what's on the other side. He even said, God placed the best things in life on the other side of terror.
Whoa, that's powerful stuff. A reminder that growth, true fulfillment, it's often outside that comfort zone. Got to face those fears if we want the good stuff.
Which leads us perfectly to Goggins's ultimate message, the no-quit mentality.
That grit, that determination to keep going when every part of you is screaming stop. How do we cultivate that? It's easy to say don't give up, but when you're in it.
Goggins says true success, it comes from pushing past pain, fatigue. Do 11 reps when your opponent stops at 10. That's his thing. He uses the boxer analogy, Beaten up, but finding a way back up.
The fighter who just won't stay down.
Yeah. It's about digging deep, finding that inner strength to keep moving.
Knowing what you're fighting for, that vision that pushes you through the tough times.
He talks about those hours grinding, pushing to the limit, sacrifice. He says, they had the nerve to count you out. That's because they didn't understand that your motivation would never let you stay down for the count. It's times like these that we separate the real from the fake. And winners like you can take a punch and bounce right back because you understand and know exactly what's at stake. It's all preparation for when you're tested, pushed to the edge.
So it's not just a positive attitude, it's the work you put in beforehand that gets you ready.
He says, see, you are bound and determined to enter into the realm of greatness that's reserved for you and only you. And so if the day ever comes that you're tired enough to quit, then I need you to act like a car with 4 flats and retire.
I love that. Retire instead of quit.
Yeah.
Sometimes you do just need to rest, recharge, and come back stronger.
It's not always about pushing till you break. It's knowing when to step back, recover.
Finding that balance, pushing your limits, but also resting when you need to.
And knowing success isn't a straight line. There'll be setbacks, challenges.
Yeah.
But it's how we respond that matters.
That resilience, that ability to bounce back.
Hmm.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive into Goggins, what's the one thing you want our listener to take away?
We're all capable of so much more than we think. We limit ourselves with our beliefs, our fears. Goggins is all about breaking free from that, pushing ourselves to become the best versions we can be. It's about recognizing that potential, yeah. It's there in all of us.
Not letting those doubts hold us back.
He's like, stop playing small,
So how do we do that? How do we tap into that potential?
Well, Goggins would say it starts with self-discipline. That's the foundation.
Which he argues is actually self-love.
Exactly. It's about making choices that align with your long-term goals, even when they're tough.
Even when you'd rather just eat the pizza and binge watch TV.
Yeah, exactly. It's about delaying gratification, choosing the harder path, because you know it'll lead to something better.
And that's not easy. It takes serious mental toughness, which Goggins is the king of.
Oh yeah, he's all about pushing those mental limits.
He doesn't just deal with fear. He goes looking for it.
Intentionally putting himself in situations that scare the crap out of him.
Like skydiving, for example.
He talks about that a lot, actually. The fear leading up to it was crippling, but the jump itself, he says, was pure bliss.
It's like proving to yourself that you can handle anything.
He says that the anticipation of fear is often worse than the actual experience. We build things up in our minds to be these huge, terrifying monsters, but when we actually face them,
They're not that bad.
often, not even close.
I think we've all had those experiences where we worry ourselves sick over something and then it turns out to be totally fine.
Exactly. And Goggins' point is, we're letting fear control us, dictate our choices, hold us back from experiencing the best things in life.
So by confronting our fears, we not only build mental toughness, but we also open ourselves up to new possibilities.
He even said God placed the best things in life on the other side of terror.
Whoa, that's deep. Okay, so you've talked about self-discipline, about confronting our fears, about taking responsibility for our lives. But I think the thing that really sticks with me from Goggins' message is that no-quit mentality.
Oh, absolutely. It's about having that grit, that determination to keep going, even when everything in you wants to give up.
Even when it hurts, even when it's hard, even when you're tired and feel like you've got nothing left.
Goggins says true success comes from pushing past those limits.
He uses the image of a boxer a lot. You've been knocked down, you're bruised and battered, but you find a way to get back up.
He says they had the nerve to count you out. That's because they didn't understand that your motivation would never let you stay down for the count. It's times like these that we separate the real from the fake, and winners like you can take a punch and bounce right back because you understand and know exactly what's at stake.
It's about having that inner strength, that unwavering belief in yourself.
And it's not just about having a positive attitude, it's about putting in the work, preparing yourself for those tough moments.
Goggins talks about those long hours of grinding, pushing yourself to the limit. He says, see, you are bound and determined to enter into the realm of greatness that's reserved for you and only you. And so if the day ever comes that you're tired enough to quit, then I need you to act like a car with 4 flats and retire.
I love that. Retire instead of quit.
It's a reminder that sometimes we just need to rest, recharge, and come back stronger.
It's not always about pushing yourself to the breaking point.
It's about finding that balance, pushing your limits, but also knowing when to take a break.
And understanding that the path to success is rarely a straight line. There will be setbacks, challenges. How we respond to those challenges is what defines us.
It's about having that resilience, that ability to bounce back from anything life throws at you.
And that, I think, is the essence of Goggins's message.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the world of David Goggins, we're left with this question. What's one small step you can take today, one brick you can lay that will move you closer to your goals? Remember, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Thanks for joining us.